So hello, everybody. Welcome to the fabled season 1 Fireside Chat I promised like 3 months ago. The purpose of this is just like we always are doing, which is generally by accident. Can everyone hear me?
You cut out for a sec.
Okay, accidentally hit my mute button, moving my mic closer. So we'll be doing the same thing we normally do, just checking in on what we've been doing, as well as talking about season 1 and hopefully conveying our approach to it so that you kind of can temper your expectations going in and knowing how to best engage with it. One of the things in coming on this project that I noticed was the unrealistic expectations on this main story that hasn't happened in like 10 years. So I just wanted to touch base about what to expect and how to engage with it to get the most out of it. But first, we'll do our normal check-in. For those of you who may have not been paying attention over the summer, we've had a ton of events by Alt, as well as new dungeons and content. Cody and Rex rebalance magic in such a way that now it's more tenable, so we're not paralyzed in balance anymore. It's a lot more ebb and flow with that. We redid crafting, and we're still working on cleaning up crafting. And we previously our wish list for season 1 includes all of that and allopathy, drugs, and reputation. So we got through most of that, but we are still cleaning up some crafting. We are still monitoring majory just because inherently both of those systems are so complex. We're always going to be keeping an eye on those. There's going to be bugs and there's going to be tweaks. We have finished up the framework and we're beginning to soft open our reputation system. And we're going to come back to that because that's insanely important in the main story. And then we're also going to be delving into drugs, allopathy, and am I missing anything, Cody and Rex? In dev side?
Werewolves, I think.
Werewolf, sure. And then also we've been writing a shit ton of lore and all sorts of stuff there. So that's all been going on behind the scenes.
And the paper.
And the paper. So that's where we're at with that. Let me pull up my notes. I've just been kind of BSing. Okay, so on our to-do list, I said classing cleanup. Oh, we're working on jewelry still. We're going to be revisiting that because it's a little messy. And then we're going to be just doing some other tweaks. So let me just go right to reputation. That's our big mechanic that we've been working, like Rex has been working on, and it's going to be our next one we're going to be rolling out. And it's going to play majorly into the main story. Cody, do you want to talk about reputation a little bit? Because it's kind of your thing.
I mean, the notes. I mean, I could just spew off things about reputation.
Sure.
It's basically just a passive system in which we can track what players are doing in the game. Because we're a small staff team, we can't see everything you do. It kind of functions kind of like WoW reputation. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with it, where it's like goes up and down when you do stuff. But we're implementing it in like every way we can. It's going to extend to like role play. So like if you role play with a faction, you can gain rep. If you have rep, like you could RP different stuff. Like you might be able to, like now letters to the Reeve go in the trash, but if they know you and you have a high rep, it'll go to the Reeve and they can read it and react. You can gain rep by doing quests. There'll be more quests. There'll be like dungeons, going to events, any independent, pretty much whatever you can imagine, you can gain or lose rep for. So, like if you're shit talking the Foundry and the paper, you probably lose some rep. If you're loving the Foundry and the paper, you'll gain some rep. And it's just another tool for us to be able to use to make the world more reactive, give you things to do when we're not there, and be able to reward you for the things you do when we're not online. And have it extend to like all the factions eventually. I don't know if that's.
Yeah.
I don't know if I missed anything.
Yeah. So like use cases, you can gain reputation by killing a monster, finding a new area, you can get reputation. Basically, it's a trophy, but we can rename an item idea to anything, and those are turn-in items that you can personally give to a member of that faction. So you can gain a trophy for killing a wild deer, and you can give it to the foundry, and then they'll give you a reward for that. And when you have the item, when you hover over it, it'll tell you like you'll gain 10 reputation with the foundry for turning this in, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And some items will have multiple turn in options. You can turn it into party A or party B, whatever. And once you have reputation, then it'll open up things like you'll get access to areas that are blocked if you don't have enough reputation, dungeons like that. Vendors, you'll be able to buy stuff. They'll basically unlock just like WoW, be able to buy reputation items through them.
And it's not just like hunting, right? It's probably going to launch limited, where it's probably mostly like turning quest where you do stuff. But as we expand, the reason we're soft launching is because we want to expand it. So we want to do more quests. So like if you could get lumber and give it to the foundry to support them. You can do events. Like we want to extend it past just turning quests so everyone can partake in it. You don't necessarily have to go hunt to do it because not everyone likes hunting.
Yeah, so it's going to start. We're going to be soft launching it with a minor faction and a minor event chain that's going to be working us literally figuring out, like Rex has designed the system and I know it works. It's just me and Cody, we haven't really we have to like learn how to play with it too. So and alt. So we're going to be soft launching it with that. Main story is still going to be happening. But that's going to be the first big time you see it implemented, and then once we kind of fine tune it there and we wrap our heads around it, it is going to extend to our official factions. As Cons mentioned in the chat, it is official factions. And minor factions eventually, but the big goal with it is to get it working so that our major factions in the main story have it to inform us of how things are going. A lot of the main story is modular. It's not railroaded. It's very much going to be what you guys are doing in between events is going to inform us how those events are going to go, which is why the reputation system is so important. So what else is there to say about reputation? We're going to have a lot of ways to earn it. Like Cody said, it's going to allow us a more fair way to judge people's work. And so there's no perceived bias. There's no perceived railroading on our end with the story. It's going to be we're going to have raw data to inform us how things are going.
It also like makes things more like if you're going to like, I know people talking about the Ashwalkers, eventually, ideally, they would have their own stone with rep. And if you're going killing Ashwalkers, you'll have a low rep with them. They're going to be hostile towards you. But if you potentially do RP with them, they might become unhostile towards you, right? And that's the same, like if you're killing people like foundry guards, they'll like become hostile to you eventually. So it's a way to just give us more tools and make the world feel alive, really, is the goal of it.
Mm-hmm. It's also, like I said, it's going to be informing the main story. So I highly recommend you guys, if you haven't already, I think all of you are pretty active now that I'm looking at you, to get involved before, just because I wouldn't wait for main story events is kind of what I want to say. Because a lot of the stuff's going to be happening in between. We've already started waking some things up. We've already started planning some things in the paper. So the first month or two are going to be kind of slow to give people a chance to hop back in, to wrap their heads around the lore. The lore is amazing. It's just there's a lot, so it's hard to always know
And there's
what
gotta be
needs to
more.
be relevant. Because a lot of a lot of the Valhalla wisdom is religious lore or like territory, like real good in the weeds stuff. So we'll be using little events and newspapers and things like that to help us all kind of signal what you should be paying attention to, and so that when things start popping off, you know what's going on. Um, I guess I'll just get into it, I guess. So the big concept behind the main story is to provide a backdrop for players to interact with each other. Like I said, the reputation and everything that's happening in between events is going to inform us how the events go. So it's highly recommended that you guys, don't wait for events. Like, get in game, talk amongst yourselves. I also wanted to make clear that there will be scheduled events, and those things will be happening. But also, I want to talk about NPC interaction. I know that a lot of horror stories in UO have been staff players or staff characters lording their power over somebody in the moment. I've also heard people, be scared of coming to events in the past because of fear of getting killed, or that staff wants to kill you. Not necessarily in this chart, just kind of around. So I just wanted to check in and say that, like, we're not gonna try and kill you. Like, none of these events are meant to get you hurt. But I did want to say that this is a grimdark shard, and the lore elements are very scary. So just if you're behaving like a normal person and you're behaving responsibly and you're adhering to the world setting, you should be fine. But the NPCs and the story elements will be reactive. So
Yeah, like if you're like a mage and you go up to Vic and you start casting, they're gonna try to kill you. Right?
yeah,
It's mostly use your common sense. They are going to act as how the faction would act. Like if you're around a high profile person and you start making threats, the guards will attack you. They might.
yeah,
I mean, what happens after that depends on like the severity. They could lead to your character being PD'd, depending. But we don't want to
yeah,
PD people's characters. That's not what we want to do.
yeah. We're not making these events to be like, ooh, and then we'll try and trick them into, stringing them up. No, no, no. But yeah, like Cody said, like, if you're a mage and you're going to a Vic event, just be aware of what the Vic are about. And we are actually working on the Hollow Wisdom Vic write up to help that as well. But also, we'll be doing these minor exposition events to help introduce you to these elements, so that by the time we're actually out in the world interacting with you with them, you're going to have a good idea of their boundaries. So hopefully that helps. What else? Let's see. Ignorance of the lore will not excuse you from consequences. I think we all know that. Let's see. Okay, so I don't really know how to phrase this without giving stuff away. But in a campaign, right? Like, or in a campaign, there's like a theme, there's a setting. So when we talk about Requiem, this is a grimdark world. So it's important that we all understand that it's a complex, amoral thing. So just be aware that we're going to be presenting choices through who to support. And that's what the reputation system is going to be informing us of: who's being supported, who's being favored, to know how things are going. So just be aware that there's no right answer. And at the same time, because of the ideological
There is a right
complication.
answer. There is a right answer.
Of course there is.
There
There is a right answer. My
No, it's mine.
faction. My faction.
faction.
Please.
Uh, well, regardless, just because of the way the world is, there's always going to be at any given time somebody who doesn't agree with you, who may find your choices wrong. There may even be faction NPCs within the faction who, don't agree with you. Like, this is it's a complex world. So I just also wanted to check in and say that, like, if we ever have adversarial altercations in character, it is all in character. You've done nothing wrong. Just because we have one NPC saying something doesn't mean it encapsulates the hive mind of the entire faction. Does that make sense? Is that tracking?
Yeah,
Cody?
no hard
Okay.
feelings.
No hard feelings. Don't get upset if someone doesn't like you. We won't get upset when you hate our characters. But yeah, that's kind of it. The biggest thing is the reputation system is going to be providing those metrics to allow us to react to what you've been doing in game. So if you're just showing up to the events, you're probably not going to get the full picture. It's probably going to be confusing. I highly recommend that people get involved with each other sooner than later.
I think maybe I know maybe I'm just a idiot, but maybe go over like what they can expect in the. I know you briefly stated that it's going to be a slow rollout,
Sure.
but I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is going to be the main story on the first will have started, right? It's not
Mhm.
going to be like a grand opening event where something big happens. It's going to be
Yeah,
setting the stage for like a bigger event. Will
yeah,
be the first thing.
yeah.
A
Expect
slow
like
burn to an eventual
yeah.
huge fiery cataclysmic explosion.
I'm not personally a big fan of big monolithic events because we're all adults, and I think that blink if you miss it monolithic event on a Wednesday night or whatever is not fair. I prefer things that are organic. So we will have big
That's
scheduled
not.
events, but a lot of this first few months or few weeks is going to be a slow burn, like newspaper articles, little things here and there. We'll have a bigger event. It'll be very social exposition. We'll have a few more things just so that when things do pop off, like we're all, there's been ample time to catch up and to process because Requiem's complicated.
I think that's another good thing to talk about, though, is that your character may not be privy. The scheduled events, I'm pretty sure in most cases, all characters would be privy to. I guess it would depend on what the event is. But a lot of the smaller events, as you said, like there will be choices, right? So if you make a certain choice, you might not be in this event, in like a certain event, but the people who are aligned with that would be.
Hmm.
But you would have your own thing that you get to be a part of, and
Yeah.
that would all be like a reps. Like it depend on your rep, how you've been
Mhm.
RPing, who you're siding with, what choices you made.
And a lot of choices aren't like a BioWare dialogue tree in the moment. Like it's gonna be like, you know, you're making the choice by supporting this faction by killing in a bunch of shit and turning in the reputation thing. There's those kind of decisions. So that's what I mean by a lot of choices are made in between because we'll look at that and we'll say it looks like they heavily favored these people and their motivations. So let's work with that.
Right.
So it's going to be a lot of that. The macro of it, without spoiling too much, is that we're going to have three major players in this first stint, and we're all taking lead on those, but we're also helping each other throughout the whole thing. So we'll all be providing different ideological paths for people to gravitate to, depending on their character, which is why I said there's no wrong answer. Like, just go with what your character would do. Each path will provide pros and cons. They'll provide their own reputation and aesthetics um, to hopefully adhere to the play style that you're buying into. And
Also, go ahead, finish.
no, that's it. I'm just
Okay. Also, transmogs are coming. You'll be able to transmog.
transmogs are coming.
Also, custom transmog, custom shit for each faction will have their own custom transmog. They'll have their own unique stuff.
Well,
Like
he's
Vic
talking a big
make.
game. He's gotta make all this stuff
Well,
still.
yeah, well, it'll get done.
It's
Right?
actually it's I like
They
it's
all
pretty
get
close.
custom stuff. Our philosophy is to make not like don't make any of them better. We don't want it to be a mechanical choice. There will be some mechanics locked behind reputation.
Mhm.
Um,
And they'll
but
shore up the RP though. They're gonna shore up
yeah,
the
it's more to it's for the people who would naturally already choose that faction is what we're hoping for.
like Vic are gonna have a lot of anti-magic utility. We
Right.
can be honest about that.
Um
Uh,
so
Transmogs have been coded and working for 6 months now, so
mhm,
finally.
yeah.
yeah. We also have a bunch of other, which like Rex has been putting up with my bullshit and slowly ninja adding a bunch of items. So expect like carpets to come in soon. Expect some more clothes. Expect uh, a few other goodies lying around that we'll be bringing into in like the next week. I got to push up my file update. I was supposed to do it this morning, and I'm very sorry. But yeah, so essentially be the macro of it is there's going to be three major factions, and through supporting them or subverting them, you will help influence the story and what happens.
Yep. And when we move on to the next arc of the story, well, it depends. I guess that's a little too far ahead, right?
Not too far ahead, but I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, the
It
point.
depends how the
Yeah.
players, this arc ends would determine what happens in the next. Like we have a idea of where the story is going.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
just
have, like,
know that like
narratives.
Archon has totally planned out a very long term schedule for this entire thing, and then there's multiple paths that everything can take towards, Tor
Yeah.
and other stuff.
And
they're
it's
not
reactive, I
like,
think, is
yeah,
the big thing. It's
it's
reactive
designed
depending
to
what
be
the players say.
reactive. Yeah, like I've mapped out beats and I've mapped out pacing of like benchmarks to say. But how we get there and who gets there and how, I don't know. And also, I play D&D. I know things go off the rails and we just have to wing it at some point. I know because we don't think of everything. But we do have like a pretty, I think, good idea of just the goal is to provide you guys a reactive world. And with the NPC factions being so big and vast, providing it in such a way through reputation to allow that sort of thing, to allow you to actually influence it within the realism, like the realistic setting of just being a few people.
Right. I think that's also important to understand going in, is that a lot of these factions are vast. Like you as a player can only have so much impact on the overall world, right? Where it's not going to be railroaded. Your characters will have impact, but you're going to have to plan, be smart, work together to achieve. It depends what you want to achieve. Like you're not going to be able to kill the Foundry because there's like 8 million Foundry people.
Yeah, which is why we're never trying to kill you, because it's like realistically, if some guy came up and destroyed and tried to attack the Foundry, they would just call in tons of people. Like it's not
Right.
fair. It's not fun. But if
Yeah.
like you guys as a group are like, all right, we want to, do some hijinks and you guys do some role play and stuff, it's like, all right, well maybe you can make a
Yeah.
dent. So
Yeah, just stifle your like. You probably won't be able to. I mean, maybe you could remove the Foundry from the first province, but that would be a
do a
hard
lot more.
goal because they have so much resources, and your character would know that. But if you want to blow up the Foundry holdings, force them to like shore up somewhere else, if you play it smart, that's possible.
And if we did happen to remove the Foundry from the Foundry, would anything of value truly be lost?
Yes.
I think
Hope.
so.
Hope for the
Hope.
future of this republic would be lost.
Well, I don't know.
Anyways, we're gonna be trash talking each other for long, so get used to that. The other big thing too, I lost my train of thought a little bit. But yeah, just yeah, like if you like we were saying, you can't like anything's possible, but yeah, like temper your expectations in that we're a few people in a giant world with these massive factions. What else is there? There's a lot. Oh, another thing too is in regards to I have a whole write up, you guys, and I will post it. It's just I'm kind of all over the place because talking versus reading. Um, we're gonna be providing not just we're gonna have because there's gonna be three of us and we're gonna have different factions and we're gonna be, juggling cast NPCs and working with each other. We're gonna be providing a little bit more organic like office hours for like think of like happy hours, but like times when like the NPCs of that faction are going to be around so you can interact with them outside of a big event. And that will be able to provide you backstory or catch you up to what's going on. Some of those things might be locked by reputation, like you can't just walk right up to the main guy of the Vic, but maybe when you're exalted you can. So we'll be providing like a lot of different things. I'm going to be posting a poll as well tonight that uh, I'd like everyone to do that kind of gives me a sense of everyone's time zones and availability on weekdays and weeknights to help schedule various office hours as well as events.
One more thing I would like to reiterate, because I feel like it's painted a lot as like the rep system is like a mechanical thing where you grind to get rep. The ability to gain rep is as unlimited as your imagination. Anything you do, you can gain or lose rep. I mean, it's very important. So if you host, you can whatever you can think of to gain favor with these things, you'll be able to
Yeah.
do it. Like
Even just having a
events,
bad
whatever.
interaction or a good interaction with an NPC from a faction might dock you or give you a plus. But the big goal too is just to provide a more unbiased system and metrics so that we can keep track of everybody. We want to be fair. We want to talk to everybody. There's probably a lot more, but I'll post it. Is there anything else anyone else wants to say before we open the floor?
This paper is gonna be cool. That's it. There's a paper coming.
Oh,
I don't know if it's a
yeah.
surprise or not, but
It's a surprise because it's in my files. I have to push it up, which I'll do after this.
Big lore drop's coming. Very excited.
oh, that's
Yeah,
true.
I'll drop Red Home tonight. I was trying to push through Vic, but I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah, over the next week, it's probably going to be Red Home, Vic, and Ignomortium lore will probably all be added to the
Yeah.
Hollow Wisdom.
And Ignomortium is going to be our minor faction that we're going to be doing events with to roll out the system, the reputation system. And it's mostly just us getting our head, like us as staff, like setting up spawns and like working with the tools and probably thinking of a million other ideas to use them. And that will come with a dungeon and just a mini loop to get us all acclimated. And then
And I guess this is good to talk about. We'll be reworking loot as well around the things. We introduced enchanting. There's currently like one mob that drops the stuff to get enchants. We'll be expanding that. We'll be shifting around where augments are got. We'll be moving up the loot, and we'll update with the changes.
We're going
once
to be
they're done.
balancing it kind of like we've had all these new dungeons and they're excellent. But the loot, it feels like the Ashwalkers are kind of like you have to go there still for all the end game.
Mhm.
So this new dungeon is going to provide a mid-tier. The junk augments are essentially going there. And then so to provide more of a flow for a new character to kind of like, they go to the graveyard and then they go to like Awela and the Ratmen and they get their gold. And then they'll like go up north to different places to get, augments and stuff. And then your end game stuff for right now is the Ashwalkers with the enchants. But we also plan on making it more aesthetically fitting, So like, but we'll line it up whenever we get there. But that's the plan for that. Should I answer questions now?
Sure. That's what the people want.
That's what the people want. If you ask a question, you're gonna have to ask it again down here. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, how do we do
No.
unmuting? What's the easiest way to do?
Oh, that's a Rex thing.
Hello.
We didn't call. Wait till we call on you to unmute.
Oh.
Who wants the?
Well, I'll answer a few things. The paper's coming out either Friday or Saturday. I have to push up my files and I've never messed with the Sentinel, but I've messed with the Herald and I know it's about the same. So I just have to format it, which some of you know is a pain in the ass. So, but we made a whole, it's so funny. It's so good. It's so good. Let's see what else. Major official factions, yes, cons. That's what we answered that. Okay, well, yeah, let's just start.
All right. Koss, go ahead.
Posse first.
No, I didn't have any particular questions. I just want to say hey.
No, how's it going?
Hello.
Good to see you. Good to see you around. The Titan, the World Destroyer back. All right, Kent, I suppose.
Yeah, let's go.
Are you sure about that?
One question, and then we'll circle back. One question per.
I have a couple of questions.
I know. We'll
Okay.
we'll space them out.
Choose your favorite question first.
Yeah, let's do it in order.
Ooh. All right. So how will player factions interact with the reputation system? Cody touched on this a bit earlier. He stated that individuals are small in the grand scheme. Will player factions have a big an impact?
That's a good question. We haven't really. Or you can go.
Well, we do plan on hooking it into the faction system. That's like our next, and I know Rex is still working on that, like hooking it into the stone. So that we could do more macro type stuff and have more synergy there. Whether like the thing is, and I think you guys know this the faction system isn't any of us, so we have to, it's kind of getting our heads around it is something we still kind of have to do, and I'm sorry. But to your question, that's a great question. I'm not 100% sure yet how it's going to be implemented, but yeah, I would like to make it more faction. I would like to have an option to where it's like, I may not have heard of you, but yes, I've heard of your faction. Yes, and like have some sort of synergy there for people who are working as a
It
group.
it won't be you spending influence to gain rep for your faction. It I do think it should. We hadn't discussed it, um, but I do feel like factions should have maybe a separate rep thing of their own.
Well, they already
Um,
have in, if you go to the faction system, you'll see there already are reputations amongst each other. You can set, you can set things to like, Kent's faction is set to hating my faction or something. Like that's already in there. So yeah, we got to think about how to track that on the macro and how that for sure. What?
That's someone muted, Kent.
Oh,
Uh, um, yeah, no. Also, the thing about factions versus players is factions. It's easier for us to just manually do faction rep and set it based on what the faction's doing.
mhm,
Whereas like players, there's a lot more players than there are factions, so it's a little bit
mhm.
harder.
It's going into this next step. It's going to be more like your personal actions, greater impact. But it sounds like we're exploring some other player faction options.
Yeah, I'm sure factions will play some part of it. We'll have to discuss it though.
We got to figure out how it hooks in because it'd have to be something automated too. So we just have to figure out how it hooks in and then we'll make a metric. But I would like it to have some sort of play so that, yeah, like if you, and that also helps you keep tabs on each other. Like if you're like, all right, guys, we're going to be pro Vic and we're going to help them. And then somebody's like killing Vic and they're like, there could be some conflict, inter player conflict and, keeping your faction in line, which I
The
like.
mechanics related to that is there's already currently like these automated faction quests that are really kind of dumb, but they are a framework. And we're going to be able to go through that list and put in new quests to kill. It could be a Mongbat or whatever. But the point is, once you complete that, you can get rep directly for a certain faction. Like it'll say on the little note, like if you do this quest, you'll get everyone in the faction will get 10 or 100 rep with the Foundry or whatever. Or the reward for completing that could be an item where the item has the goal on it. Like the item itself will say, turn it into the Foundry or turn it into the Vic or whoever else. And those numbers can be different. Like if you turn it into the Foundry, you can get 10. But if you turn it into the Vic, you can get 100. So you have to make that choice. Like, what am I doing? Where am I going to spend my time to like do something good so I get more rep with whoever your goal is?
I mean that's one option. We haven't really discussed this. So we have to discuss it. See, me, I would honestly prefer there being a separate rep that is tied to the faction itself. Because say a new player joins, the Legion or the First Taurian, and there's like a Legion faction, for example, and the First Taurian's super tight with the Legion. Just that person being in the faction would give them a little boost to their own personal rep. So I'm not sure how it would do it, but I feel like we'll have to discuss it.
Yeah, we have to think about it, but it's a good point, and we'll definitely keep that in mind. What's your next? Who's next? We could
I
do
think
Pentagon
Domna
Team.
can factions negatively affect your standing with NPCs and your.
That's what I would like to happen a little bit.
Um.
Subterfuge element, though. I mean, we got to think about it.
No, I feel like we'll have to discuss that as well.
Yeah.
But if it was up to me, I'd be like, if you have your faction tag hidden, and they don't know you personally, then it has no effect because they don't know you're in the faction.
Yeah. But it could also come back to haunt you. I mean, we'll be reacting. Like, so if you're in the blue faction and you're killing a bunch of people for
Yeah.
faction A, and then but your faction's tight with that faction A. That faction A might go to your actual faction and be like, "Yo, we have a problem with something. We need your help because we're tight. You need to help us find and execute the person who's doing this." Like, I don't know. There might be consequences. Like, so we'll
Yeah.
like there's a lot of ways we can play that dynamic. So yeah, we'll keep that in mind. What is the next question? Do we unmute Kent?
There's none. Okay. Yeah, I'll unmute him. Hello, Kent.
Oh, did I get another question now?
Mhm.
Yes.
Well, just kind of want to touch on some of the things you mentioned here. With regards to the reputation system, Cody had mentioned earlier that it's only limited by your imagination. Yet, simultaneously, um, it's been said a couple times here that the goal is to be hands off and to like avoid favoritism, et cetera, et cetera. How are
Mhm.
you going to accomplish these conflicting goals?
Probably the same way we do
I don't think
versus.
it's I don't think it's conflicting at all.
It's not conflicting. We'll have an internal, like we have internal metrics of like, all right, um, an event lasting this long, we give this, like we'll gamify it on our end and make like a standard um of like a social event versus this versus and I think is it 1 to 10,000 Rex? Is that how the slider goes?
I think it's like negative 10,000 to 10,000.
Negative 10,000 to 10,000.
Yeah.
That's right.
So yeah, so we'll internally make a guide, I guess, to kind of give us like just like versus like give us like a structure to how we reward what and how. What Cody kind of means is just to say like you don't have to just PvE and farm mobs to get rep.
Right.
Like where that's what he's trying to say. Like if you're not, you shouldn't be punished for role play. Like if you want to sponsor an event to, help the foundry in their efforts to do a thing like that will probably get you something. Writing the newspaper for or against something might get you something. So we'll try, just like how I made the paper have like rules and stuff, we'll have something, but it'll probably be internal so people don't try and milk it or abuse it. But I'll make a note to think about that. What's the next question? Constantine's typing, so I'm gonna see what he's
It better be a question, Constantine.
Are there any plans to balance out the cost of particular room gambling? We haven't really had, so with Majory and Enchanting so far, we haven't really been given a lot of constructive feedback. We've heard feelings, some pro and against certain things, but we haven't really been presented data to make big changes.
I think the event has only been done like one time since it was even implemented, to my knowledge. So, and I think that a lot of that is owed to the fact that it costs so much particulate.
What do you mean
So-
the event? Like the
The boss mob that drops
Oh,
this stuff. I
right.
could be wrong, but yeah.
It's in game. It's routinely farmed.
It is, but we're going to right now. We just threw that on there just so it's in the game. We are going to be expanding what you can get enchants from. We'll
Mhm.
be tuning up and down how much IP or cost. We've talked about making the RNG a little bit less, making like we talked a lot of stuff. Right now, it's like not completely implemented. Once we do the overhaul of drops, which will be coming soon, then we'll be making further changes to, like, it is supposed to be, there is going to be like a difference. It was too easy to get enchants before. So it's going to be more difficult to get enchants now. So yes, it will increase the gap, but it's like a change that needed to be made because enchants
Yeah.
were like exclusive to mages pretty much, and then it
Like, they've
also
been
was just way too
stacking
easy to get.
first. Like the people who have enchants have had them since like month 2.
Yeah.
So like short of wiping everyone's enchants and starting fresh, like we kind of unfortunately have to live with a little bit of disparity for a while. It sucks, but unless we wiped, it would be it. But yeah, it is a huge gap between a new player.
Yeah, but it
it's
will
in-game,
become
you know?
more available too. So it's
Yeah,
not.
yeah, we're gonna provide more options and
It
The
should
whole
balance out in
system was
time.
like a very long discussion of, the meta of equipment durability. Like everything's got like 200 durability, and that's not very fun because you have to repair it all the time, and you're not likely to enchant something unless it's masterwork. So we want to get away from those hard situations. So now a lot of gear has a lot more durability, and on the enchanting side, only mages being allowed to get enchants is no longer a thing. Now anyone can get them, and it is on the boss mob. Yes, it is actually complete, but we will be tweaking it and giving those runes to different mobs and different sources. So
yeah, that's coming with our dungeon rebalance. Also, another thing to note in our dungeon rebalance, one of the things we're trying to do that we'll be accomplishing hopefully is more focused hunting. So, right now, like junk loot is generally the same everywhere, and then you have like, yeah, like a boss has a certain thing, and then the Ashwalkers have augments for some reason. So we're going to be looking to make things line up to their theme more. Like Ratmen love shiny things, right? So they're probably going to have money. The cannibals, they eat people. They're probably going to have a lot of bone moriums, things like that, so that you're not wasting so much time finding these things. Like you're like, all right, I need this, so I'm going to get a group and we're going to go do that. And it's very focused, so you can like
Yeah.
save a
Also,
lot of that time and effort.
there's a lot of places there's like no reason to hunt,
Yeah,
because
that too.
it's like let's just do Ashwalkers because it gives the gear. So
Yeah.
we're trying to move away from that and try to spread it out. And we'll be introducing new stuff as as we go on to the next season that you can grind. We may introduce another tier of gear progression at some point. Keep it in mind of like power creep. We don't want the power creep to get too bad. Yeah, I don't know.
What's the next question? People are typing. Hold on, Ken. Let me see what everyone else says.
I have a question.
Hold on.
So does Con.
First cons. Are there any plans to lower RNG with props when capting? Rex? Cody?
Wait, is there any plans to lower RNG with props while crafting? Are you talking about like a mythic? Like mythic items?
the question has come up, like if you craft a mythic level cloth padding, and then you use that cloth padding to make a piece of gear, shouldn't that next piece of gear have a higher chance of being something better quality? And I'm pretty sure that is something that I could figure out how to program. It's basically when you craft the thing, I have to take a look at the resources that were actually used to make it, and then hold that variable, and then add it on to crafting the final result.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I like the idea of it. Like, say you have a full masterwork thing on something, like, because currently you can have like a masterwork that's not that good. Maybe it like lowers the range in which, like, the HP on armor might be 1 or 2 at the cap.
Yeah, and the other part of that is like, okay, an item that takes 2 pieces, and you make them both with masterwork, and let's just say they both give like a 1% chance for the end result to be a next tier up, as opposed to like something that takes like a gun that takes like literally 8 things to craft one gun. Like, what if all 8 of those things are all masterwork? Does that have a higher percentage chance to get master or mythic. Like there's some balance in there that we have
And
to
there
think
is,
about
like-
before we do something.
And there's also the balance of like if you're using these masterwork items and then you don't get it, it's kind of like
Yeah, we have to think about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, we
Yeah.
have to kind of look at standardization of certain crafts, like wearing 6 mythic obies versus wearing like 1 mythic dress. You know, some things are easier to get than others with cost, and it's
Similar along those lines is like we could add a bump in the chance if you're crafting with a masterwork tool, like that could be another possibility. Like you have your masterwork sewing kit, and then your clothing will be higher chance to get a the next tier up, whatever.
Yeah. So currently we haven't discussed it and there's not plans yet, but I mean it's definitely something we could
Yeah.
discuss and
like
add in the
we have a
future.
short list of things, and then we have like things we'll get to.
Which
That's the
you
whole
and
campaign.
Ashford are both on the test team, so I'm sure we
Yeah,
can
so
continue
we'll
to
get
discuss
into
that.
Mhm.
I don't know a whole lot about crafting, so I mean we can discuss it with you guys.
Yeah. But yeah, we agree it's like it is shit whenever you finally proc that really hard thing to get and then it doesn't have the best stats, for sure. We're aware of that. It's just how hard was it to make versus what you get from it versus all that stuff has to be unpacked.
All right, who unmuted and talked? You're
It's all.
next. Oh, Koss. All right. What you got?
I was
Oh yeah,
curious.
Archon used a cuss like 20 minutes ago. So be aware, kid.
I do cuss. I will try and heckin' tune it down.
Check
Go ahead,
my
Bob.
head.
Yeah, no, we are an 18+ community.
No, we're PG-13 and in chat.
No, we are not here to impress Disney. That's
We're
sad.
safe for work. We're safe for work.
I don't think anyone's playing this while at work. But that's sad.
What was your
You'd
question?
be surprised.
Yeah.
Um,
What was your question?
Will the factions be able to focus themselves towards researching a sense of advancement within their faction grounds? Because we noticed improvements such as the plumbing and other things. What is that background noise?
That's Virgil.
It's Virgil.
He's channeling something.
I'm gonna mute you, Virgil, for a second. Just
But we've noticed in the town itself, we've seen technological advancements for quality of life that, in all justification and senses, this does not help if afflicted attack the town, but all the same, it would be nice if we're able to research having plumbing, furnaces, any sense of electrical within our faction places, as well as things like stone walls.
it's on the to-do list to do stone walls in tier 2. It's just mapping it and making them.
Yeah.
As for electricity, I'm gonna tell you straight up, like that's probably just the foundry.
Can I
No,
take
maybe.
their electricity since I'm big?
Maybe.
Neat.
You can
Oh.
try.
There are some
Sounds like a
stone
faction
walls
verse.
built. I just need to.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you want all the modern amenities, you're probably gonna have to be in the fort, just straight up. But as for like researching and developing as a faction for versus, like we're open to things.
I think it's important. Like, we want to do everything. We
Yeah.
want to add everything. We want to expand the
Mhm.
faction system, expand everything, make everything better. We kind of have to pick and choose.
I
do
am
have
but
plans-
one coder.
Yeah. We do have plans to expand the faction system some, like
Mhm.
adding new stuff. Things like electricity and plumbing being rolled into the faction system, I don't think we'll do. That's not to say it won't be attainable if like a whole faction gets together to get plumbing or electricity and they do verses towards that.
It would be a lot though. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
anything's possible.
Anything's possible.
It's just
We're not going to just like stonewall you, but it'd be difficult. You'd have to verse
Mhm.
and go through a lot of stuff. But it's possible for sure. But it won't be. I don't think it'd be integrated into the faction system itself.
Not anytime soon. When I'm being
Yeah.
a wet blanket, I'm mostly just trying to rein in what's possible with 4 people. With 4 people, 1 being the coder. We got 1 poor coder.
Yeah, water and power would definitely be quite a huge project to commence for, and it's something that would take like a small community effort to put forth. Because making a grid for things would be very expensive.
Sorry, dogs are barking. Yeah, and also remember that like verses are supposed to be like 5 people heading towards a goal, so like it would really require a lot of turnout and effort put in for that kind of mandate. So wake up your factions, folks. What's the next question?
It's time for.
I think if
Aesop, you raised your hands.
first to make stone walls and put in the RP, stone walls being a thing that you could just make in a faction
I
would get
think we were doing anyways, right?
sooner though, not just
Right.
apps. Like
Yeah.
if someone pushes us towards that goal or whatever it might be, it doesn't have to be stone walls. We're gonna go towards that goal.
Yeah. Like that's what verses are for. They're meant to be like player mandate to focus on this thing. So that when people see that we're focusing on it, it doesn't look like bias. It doesn't look like we're deviating from attentions. It's like, no, they verse for it. That's what the kind of the point is to help us focus our engagement with the community.
I also have more houses. That'll come up too.
Yeah. Real quick, Aesop, you raised your hand a while back before the chat popped off. Do you have a question?
First, can you hear me? I haven't.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure because I haven't actually talked, and my computer is always terrible. First thing, if you made the porta potty purchasable with legacy points, I would buy 12 of them. So please start that immediately.
Oh, the outhouses? Yeah.
They're probably going to
Yeah.
be pioneering items eventually. It's literally just Rex's list is so long. But
Poor
I
man.
kind of want them to be pioneering items, just walkthroughable ones. I'll do that right now. I got to change those things to be walkthroughable.
So you can just like walk in them and pretend you're peeing. I'm in love with that. Yeah.
Their tile placement's also off. That needs adjusting.
Yeah, I'll have to clean that up.
So my actual question outside of my lust for porta potties.
You love
Um,
anything shit or not.
It's true.
Sorry, shooters.
I hate that that's my legacy is asking questions about toilets.
Okay. Yeah, actually, when I push up these files, toilets should be sit downable.
I'm so excited
Okay,
about
sorry.
that.
Sorry, a
That's
lot
okay.
of toilet chatter. Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. It's one of my many loves is the toilet. But no, my question was you have a lot of great things planned for factions, and I understand that the server was geared mostly towards around joining factions, but now we have a relatively large pocket of players who have not joined factions. Do you have any plans on allowing for individual like quest lines, or would you still prefer like those people to join other players? Like how would an individual benefit from some of these things without having to join a faction, if at all?
We haven't really. I'm kind of just playing fast and loose with this one. But one is the new reputation system will allow us a metric to essentially give some sort of precedent to give somebody singular attention.
Right, but
For
I think
example, well,
maybe
okay,
she
go ahead.
means like
You mean
outside of
versus,
interacting,
versus,
like
right?
versus
Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
things right.
I
there
don't
is
know
the-
that answer
I mean,
because
I could talk on it.
it's really hard to interact with players on a one-to-one basis without perceived bias. So it's really hard to put, and also a lot of people have invested a lot of time in the faction system. So it's also kind of unfair in a way. But we kind of have to, we do have to think about
I
it.
don't think it's unfair.
Cody, go ahead and say your hot
Okay.
take. This is live, Devin. We're just
Here's the thing. I'm very pro personal versus because you should not have to be in a faction to be able to achieve things. Everyone should be able to achieve stuff because it's a live living world. Your actions have impact. Ideally. The reality is, we're like 4 people and we can only do so much. And so the way we currently handle it and how I foresaw us handle it, it's not as formal as a faction verse. It's more like if your character is RPing towards something, like say you want to create a new item, like a new jacket, and you're a designer, and you've been doing events, you've been talking to people, you've been doing forum posts. They have to be things that we can see even if we're not there in game. We'll react to it. It's just this. It's a little bit harder because for factions we lay out the steps and kind of help them achieve it. But in terms of like a more formal thing, maybe eventually, once like the server's in like a better spot, but that's probably going to be a while.
Yeah, and I mean, we do try and do personal reactive stuff. Yeah, like Cody said, whenever we see it. But yeah, there's no formal stuff.
There was one thing I don't think you mentioned, but it does pertain to individual award for involvement in these faction rep quests. Faction rep or
Say again? I didn't catch that.
faction rep shop.
Rep shot?
Shop.
Oh. Oh no, I think we discussed it. You can be able to unlock vendors
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
with new goodies
sure.
depending on rep. Yeah.
Ah, yes, that's one other.
Yeah.
Individual players can be rewarded.
The big thing
Yeah.
about versus and the faction is about player mandate, right? It's about us knowing that this is what people want and this is what they're working towards. It's a structure. So like Cody said, like if you're doing stuff and you're putting in effort and you're doing public events and you're writing in the paper and you're doing things, putting it out in the world, providing content that we can track and that other people can see that you're doing, that gives us mandate to react to it.
I think the other people seeing what you're doing is actually kind of key because
Mhm.
once I see, Group B, how did they build that bridge? Oh, they did a few steps. They wrote a forum post. They submitted the thing to the newspaper. They did a little gathering at game, and then it just happens that yes, that is. It doesn't take that many steps.
Mhm.
A lot of our difficulty is like, okay, you want to do X, and then we have to like figure out, okay, well, here's some steps they could do. We present that to the player. Here's your 3 or 4 steps. And then it's kind of up to them to like gather their forces and do whatever those things are. And sometimes it happens quick. And sometimes those players they're like, well, I don't really want to do like step C and E. So kind of take too long on this or make it lag. But if
Yeah.
you did all the steps quickly, more power to you. We're going to help you complete that verse and get stuff done in the world for sure.
Yeah, and we have to be kind of gatekeepy about it too, because like it diverts us from deving stuff to affect the whole shard. Right? Like personal attention takes away from all the other people potentially. So yeah, like if it's publicly recorded and it's very out there in a way that people can see why we're reacting, that helps us a lot. Does that answer your question? No, Aesop, are you there?
We'll assume it did. That's the only answer we got.
Yes, that did. Thank you.
Okay. And if you ever have, I don't know, like you can always open a player relations ticket for if you're trying to do something, just let us know. I always like to think of it as a trade where it's like if you're putting content out there in the world, you're making my life easier. So I'm like player events and stuff, like we're probably gonna prioritize that with or without a faction. Is that fair to say, Cody? Am I out of line?
Yes, but that's acceptable.
Okay. What's the next question?
Should we sneak Kent in for a quick question?
Let's get one. Let's do like
Let's get a Kent.
it's like a Valve release, you know?
Yeah, let's do like a low ball question. A quick, easy question, Kent.
All right, easy and quick.
Mhm. Yep.
All right, so easy. As you may be aware, there is an emote command in the game. You may do
Okay.
things such as spit and clap. Not sure if you're aware of that. Will using the spit command on NPCs decrease your rep with their faction?
Ooh, I like it. However,
If we see
That's
it,
a great
yeah.
idea.
Yeah,
If we see it,
sure.
yeah. How do we know if you're spitting to the side,
Yeah.
as like a cool gesture, or you're spitting on the NPC?
I think you should make the spit command targetable.
Hmm.
Bring up the roll menu and roll that. See what happens.
Does it work off the throwing skill?
It
it
should.
could.
I'm seeing a
Fire.
lot of too, just like random feature ask. Like Cody said, we want all of these things. We want them now as well. We just have to get the things we need to tell the story take priority, and then bug fixes and stuff. So yeah, like sheep pens, maybe eventually, yeah. We still have to balance. We want to get into all this stuff. Porta johns and electricity.
Oh
It's
yeah,
just
sheep pens. I want
right,
sheep
but we're
pens
not.
where you have to like
Yeah,
add food and water,
right.
and you can
But this
like
is
go
all
out and grab
so
an
yes.
animal in the world and bring them back,
Right.
and they
See what
can live,
happens?
and then you have like two, and then they can make babies, and you get more, and maybe they're good or bad or whatever. I want to do all that stuff.
Right. We all want all this stuff too. It's just we're not there yet. So just be patient. We swear we also want that stuff. It's literally just catching up. Because I'm gonna lose my mind if I don't get major injuries in the next 3 months. You know how I want them. Let's see. But yeah, me and Rex really want to get into agriculture and make it really fun and have its own like system. It's just,
Okay.
agriculture doesn't murder people, so we have to it's not as high on the list.
Erickson,
But
you
right
raised.
now, like planting crops and stuff, it's so punishing.
Mhm.
You plant something and the thing can die if you don't tend to it. Or we're going to change that so it's not so negative. It's more if you tend to it, it'll be much more positive.
Mhm.
And you could still lose the plant, but it won't be as punishing as before. So that is definitely coming soon.
Yeah,
Short
agriculture
list.
and pioneering is kind of it's a play style, and it's a play style that we understand is really cool and unique, and we want to give people that room. But also at the same time, uh, tailoring is a part of that. So we have to so me and Rex have to sit down and wrap our heads around how we make it fair. Um, and it's just a lot. So, but it is on our list. Like trust me, like me and Rex have had long talks about it.
Yeah, like the conversion from like flax to thread to bolts to cut cloth.
Did someone
It's
ask about
so
agriculture? How did we
convoluted.
get on agriculture?
I'm reading the chat.
Oh,
And yeah,
well,
we're
we
going on a
skipped
tangent.
Erickson. We skipped
We're
Erickson's
going there.
question.
I'm going down. Erickson, you're next. I'm sorry for the tangent. You got us talking about agriculture. Our weak spot.
Yeah, do you want to? You raised your hand, and then you also asked the question. Did you want to unmute and talk, or did you just want that question?
It's got no mic.
No.
Erickson?
Okay.
Erickson, you don't have a mic?
Said no.
No mic. Okay, hold on. Where was your?
It was faith. Whether or not we have
faith system?
like any planned mechanics for faith, even in the far future, anything about artifact, anything esoteric. I don't think we've discussed it.
We haven't really discussed it too
No.
much. Our current, like, again, we've been really focused on reputation but yeah, like once we kind of have these kind of frameworks in place, it's going to provide us a jumping point to do things a little bit more quicker, I guess, to have different kinds of trackers. So it's not off the table per se.
Faith has always been a very player-driven thing. Massing the community involves the involvement and popularity of a movement based upon your own character's direction, mostly.
Let's see. How do we make torment cures without Persona versus? Don't worry about torment just yet. In my pacing, I plan on having so this is getting ahead of ourselves, but we've kind of given our ground map of like we're working on reputation, we're clean up of crafting, drugs, jewelry, and a few other things, enchanting. Like we have like the short list of things that are happening in the near future. Once those things are in a good place, we're going to be looking at hematology and subterfuge and toxicology They haven't really gotten a lot of love because of all the focus on other systems. And that will lead into hopefully the next narrative beat after our for season 1.
It's also we
where
have
it
to.
will be
I mean, I don't know how
Go ahead.
much we can spoil, Arjun.
Go, I trust you not to spoil. I mean, there's not too much to spoil. It's
We are going to introduce anti-torment measures before torment is introduced.
right. So like how we're pacing this
Torment
is by the
is coming. We but
if
to make the anti-torment measures because currently, if we just turn on torment, the whole server would die.
you would all die.
yeah.
It would be bad. We might torment. We'll let you. You'll be very aware of torment, and you will have your footing before you are put in a position to die to torment. Is all I'm gonna say.
Now, how we introduce, like, we have to dev the anti-torment stuff on our end. How we introduce that to the game, it could be players coming together if players wanted to, or people are peeing towards it. We can introduce it that way. We'll see when we get there.
It's
It's
also
not
to
that
do
far
with
off.
and it's also to do with reaction. How equipped you are will be based on the choices you make.
It's true. Yeah.
You
I'm just
might
saying.
be
I'm just
yeah,
saying.
just,
Use your
you know,
brains. Just use your brains when you
shut
choose
up.
what faction. Okay.
Just, some might be more equipped, but they all will have pros and cons. So basically, by the time we get to that point, depending on your decisions thus far, the obstacles to prepare yourself will be different. That's all I'll say. They'll be equal but different.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we'll get into that. And a part of that, whenever we're doing toxicology, hematology, subterfuge, like when we're doing those systems, it'll probably be in there, right, Cody? It'll probably be in there.
Like the crafting of them,
Yeah, like
or
the
them,
crafting and the
and
RP
then
of it. Mhm.
yeah. I imagine if we do, it depends. Like Arjun said, it depends on how like the choices you guys make. Like, because you might not get access to everything, or you might get access to different stuff depending on like how the story goes.
Yeah.
But
You
yeah, it
might do all
depends
the
what it
things and
is.
get there and be like,
If it's like a
shit, where'd it
vaccine, and
go?
probably go.
Mhm.
If it's like a mass, probably go in engineering or something.
Yeah. And we'll try and spread things out so that a lot of different crafts and skills interact with it so you don't feel like you're forced one way or another. Let's see. Lots of chatter. Let's see if I can find a question. Ken's hands raised. I see that. I see that.
Well, if we don't have a question, let's just can't go ahead with another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If we skipped your question, just retype it.
Yeah, the chat's popping off and I'm trying to
Yeah.
read.
And if
but
you raise your
go
hand
ahead.
and we didn't call on you, just re-raise.
So, small problem. Some of you may be aware of. Crafters are they're pretty hard up, in these days and orders. So my question is with regards to bulk order deeds. I know they had been discussed at one point, but the going into season 1, are there any plans to introduce, abilities for crafters to introduce money into the economy?
Yeah, I've wanted that. The problem is, again, is balance. Like, for example, I thought about doing basic gathering skills to like turn in X amount of logs for X amount of coin. And then it was spelled out to me with meticulous data that I can't do that because of cotton, because of cloth. So it just has to be really careful because like any tip in the scale of like trying to help the casual player, we potentially break the game by allowing the hardcore player to do what the system is designed to do. It's not their fault. So we just have to be careful.
But that's also one of the things that's coming with the rep system is like
Mhm.
more quests that you can do. So like just turning in, like say you're turning in something to the Ignomortium, like they need 1,000 wood. You turn in 1,000 wood. It's not going to just give you rep. It'll also give you a reward, which could be
Mhm.
money, could be something else. So that's one
We
way.
just have to be careful. And we don't want to, yeah, like but yeah, like we're aware of it. I think a lot of the economy is based on a high server pop and it's URP, so we have to kind of think of more things like that. Did that answer your question? Before I move on.
Kinda. I mean, it was an answer.
Did you
wasn't-
did you mean like minting, or did you mean?
No, I mean like bulk order deed quests, like
Yeah,
literally
I know.
like
I want that thing. I just
duo,
have to
you
be
know.
really careful. I just have to be really careful. I
But
agree.
there seems to be a casual disregard for introduction of money into the economy via warriors. Now, I don't mean to point fingers, but this Ratman dungeon, I don't know. I don't want to spoil things for people, but this
It's
Ratman
good
dungeon
money. Yeah.
is extremely inflationary. Sorry, I've got a little bit of cough. So like I understand your concerns about, you know, not wanting to introduce a bunch of money into the economy on the other side of the scale, but at the same time a shitload of money is introduced into the economy on the warrior side on a fairly regular basis.
Right. But
So,
like the Ratmen have a lockout period. So we can lock out how fast that's being trickled in at any given time. Whereas if it was a basic turn-in quest of turn in X for this, that
Yeah,
somebody
we
could
would
just
do a
print
lockout.
money.
Yeah, we could do a
So we have
lockout
to
for that too.
program it if we want to
Yeah.
do it that way. Like I could turn on a turn-in quest right now, but any crafter could just break the economy by just turning in all their excess materials quick, right? So it's just coding that we'd have to be careful of. But
It
yeah,
is
I
something
mean,
we're discussing, and there will be a way for eventually there will be a way for
yeah,
crafters to make money.
you can always write for the paper. You can make mad gains doing that. So.
Paper do pay well.
And it even doesn't even pay that well. I was conservative. But yeah, so you know, we're working on it.
yeah,
I hear you
appreciate
though.
you.
I get it. I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you.
All right.
I agree with you.
That satisfies my question.
Yeah. Okay.
That's we'll just start with that. Every one of his questions.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Constantine, you have a question. You raised your hand. What's up? Oh, you're gonna. I kind of.
Yeah, I can just say it. I was like, I was wondering if we could like maybe consider letting people junk old equipment to recover runes in the same way that we kind of do with augments.
We are discussing ways to do that. It might be something that is introduced in reputation, or it might be something. It'll definitely be some sort of sync of to make it kind of balanced. But yeah, it's being discussed. It's being
So yeah, the
Yeah.
things we're discussing is like low level augments, making those actually viable, because currently you're only using like the highest level augment, helping the gear progression. So like maybe you'll be able to apply a lower level augment to your gear, and you can remove it and swap it out as you're hunting. But for it's not the case for the highest level augments and the enchants. Maybe they're removable through certain things. So it's all being discussed.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think it would be a good way to like. I mean, because most gear has like up to 3 runes like per enchant, right? So it'd be a good way to like. I mean, it wouldn't be too bad because you probably wouldn't get that amount back, but it was just a thought to like
Oh,
help with current scarcity.
yeah, we do plan on introducing new enchants too as things progress. So if we do that, we pretty much have to have a way to remove enchants from your gear.
Yeah. The the issue I would raise with that is that like right now the current peculiar rune lottery is like a 1 in what like is it 50 chance to get what you want?
It's pretty high,
25.
yeah.
It's pretty high. But also remember, we have like
It would
there's
be
like
in this case, we wouldn't be adding them to the pool. There would be runes you get through different means. Yeah,
different tiers.
but yeah,
of
we're aware
runes.
that it's a RNG game with
It is an
runes, so we're not
RNG
going to
game,
add
and-
to that pool. We don't plan to, at least. If anything, we're removing stuff from the pool. So
Yeah. What's
Cool.
next?
Cool.
What's
I
the
think
next
that's it for me.
question? Okay. What's the next question?
I'm gonna go pee pee.
Any questions?
I have a question for you, Arch.
Yeah.
What are you most excited to see going forward?
I'm excited for the next 2 museum events. Completely unrelated to anything we've been talking about.
We did have a passive question about the next exhibit. Do you have an idea of when that will be?
Well, here's the thing. I was gonna do something next, but Cody really wants to do something next. So we might do his thing next. But I guess I'll kind of just tell y'all. So, like a few months ago, Rex was like, "We have all these books from Acts 2 and 3, and like all these random books, but they were all broken up into bad formatting code XML thingies." So, spent a lot of time cleaning them up, and a lot of that is going to be introduced through the library and the museum and the basement archives. I put some stuff there already. Some of the stuff you guys have read is like from 10 years ago. So we're going to be using some of those as like ways to kind of pay homage to the players of the past, incorporating their stuff into Discovery.
Yeah, it's all books that players wrote,
Yeah.
journals and entries and
Mhm.
lore.
So it's really cool. It's both like RP and out of character historical, which is kind of fun. So one of our first expeditions will be recovering some of those, and I mapped the place. I'm mapping it right now. But Cody really wants to do his thing first. So
Yes, you gotta.
Like-
I don't know if that's gonna be the next museum event, but
you're so excited. I feel like it has to be.
I'm pumped.
It's so stupid. But yeah, that's what I'm most excited for. Probably because there's not a lot of pressure. You know, the pressure's off. The museum's open. The pressure is off. Now it's like, all right, shenanigans. Let's go. Yeah, that's my answer. But then yeah, like the main story is gonna be tight. And I'm gonna get super excited about that when it's there. I'm just dreading all the writing I have to do right now. What's the next question?
All right, Kent, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ken.
What is the status of the sanity system? And will it be active in season 1?
It won't be.
That
I'm
won't
just gonna
be,
say
no.
that. I'm just gonna say that right now. It's not gonna be.
I think some of the things we discussed, without giving too much away, is offering unique challenges for each season as we go forward. So
Yeah.
sanity would probably be introduced at the start of another season as like a new mechanic you will have to combat, and we would gear the content of the next season around that mechanic and use that as another tool. This one is the rep system is the main thing, but we
I can
plan
tell you
on
right now.
yeah, you can go ahead.
The plan is reputation system is season 1. Season 2 is preparing and wrapping your heads around torment, and then after that will be sanity, because only a freaking insane person would go beyond that point.
And major injury season 1.
Yeah, major injury season 1 too. Sorry, I'm just assuming that that's a given. Is magic going to cause insanity? It should. I agree.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. There's a lot of
There's going to be a lot of different ways and things, but there probably will be some sort of insaneness to certain aspects of
one
it.
of the things going into Magic with the changes is that it was always RP supposed to be powerful at a cost, at a price. So currently we've changed Magic, so it is not as powerful because there is no price currently. So if we did introduce these mechanics that are inherently negative, depending on the state of majory at the time we're still observing, it would come most likely with a reward for taking on these extra challenges.
And also,
So
Badger
majory might get stronger.
Resolve are the people who are leveling people in Purple, not random mages. So we'll get there. You might get OP, but yeah, there's going to be a cost
Mhm.
to offset that.
And there's a lot of hidden stuff about Magic that will be revealed as you
Yes, we
as
do
you
this.
progress, and can't give too much away, but
Yeah.
That has a question.
Yeah.
I do have a question. Did you say me?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I know there's intentions to look at hematology, but one of my thoughts was that if someone's injecting, I don't know, ill blood and demon blood into themselves, I like the notion things like that should be potent, but I'm pretty certain that's a quick trip to insanity.
for sure.
Yeah, that's also when we introduce. We have like a loose framework of how we want sanity to work, but in terms of like everything it touches and how expansive it is, it's a little bit too early to think about it. But yeah, stuff like even using hematology might cause insanity because it's like kind of
Mad scientist
taboo.
stuff, yeah.
You're injecting yourself with other people's blood.
Yeah. Remember, we want all this stuff too. It's just for people. We're
Okay.
trying.
People have to realize that Ansem dying from a crow's blood injection was just coincidence.
All right.
So what's the next question?
Look at her hands. Hands from anyone. Other
Okay,
than
Ken.
Ken.
I knew it was coming.
Does anybody other than Ken have a question?
I enjoy Ken's questions personally.
Yeah, they're
I
good questions.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we don't have any other
All
options.
right, Ken.
So we'll settle for Ken.
Me.
You?
So recently in Requiem, we saw the degenerate system of skill clothes turned into a much better system of skill patches. Um, I've been
Debatable.
looking into this, been pondering upon it. Um, have you considered DCI patches rather than, uh, basically what skill clothes were? Have you considered going to DCI patches for tailors?
We considered it going into it. It was discussed and we decided against it.
I don't remember that, but sure. I mean, Cody is the PvE guy.
You're the crafting
Yeah,
guy. I
we
don't know shit
definitely
about
Combat guy.
this.
You're the
discussed it.
combat.
We
you're the
discussed
combat
it.
guy.
I suggested it, and we decided not to do it.
Why did we say we weren't going to do it?
I don't remember.
Well, the thing is, like, if you have DCI patches, then all your gear has max DCI
Yeah.
suddenly. And then how does that get lowered in a fair way? Like, DCI cap is 45. It's such a small number spread over all your equipment. When you take a hit from a monster, do you lose one DCI, like 100% chance, or is it low percent chance? On one outing, you go with your friends to fight in the dungeon for 3 or 4 hours. How much DCI across all your equipment should you lose? Is that kind of the system we want to go for, like skill patches, or do we just? And then like DCI only goes on clothes, which doesn't have durability loss at all right now. So, do we turn on durability loss for clothes?
I think
There's a lot
Well,
of questions. We just didn't want to get into it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I would
current.
say that. I mean, as long as tailoring repair deeds exist, fucking loss of durability on clothes should definitely be in the game. But I think, like to my point, you already have a maximum theoretical cap of DCI that you can derive through clothes based on rebind slots. So, like, if you just went to that for your patch max, like right now, my character, my primary PC. Also, my secondary PC very mookishly wears like fucking 5 obies. And I'm forced into this. Look a little bit goofy. Um, but like the mechanical end is the same, and it's a cap that there's no punishment for it. Especially if clothes. This is news to me. If clothes don't take durability loss, then there's literally no punishment for just stacking clothes upon clothes.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
One of the things about the current patching system, and not a lot of players I feel like have, or maybe I don't know. It's not the best right now. There's a huge saturation in patches. I'm glad we didn't introduce DCI
And they're
patches
not
because they would.
lowering as intended. They're
Yeah,
not going
there
down.
would be a huge saturation with DCI because the thing about how patches currently work is that if they function like skill patches, you'd be able to apply a 1% DCI patch 4 times to get 4% DCI. So, like, I don't know. We'd have to discuss it and go further. Currently, maybe once the patches are in a place where we're happy with, then it's a possibility. But until then, definitely not.
Sure. Agree to disagree. But that answers my question.
Did you have a question, Domna, or you just? Assume not.
Take your time on thinking. I'm eating. Okay, a question. Go ahead.
True, actually.
Well, I mean, I don't want to walk over other people's questions. I mean, if they have questions. But if they don't, I have a list of questions here. So, Ashwalkers are cool. Some people want to see more of them. Will we be seeing more of the Ashwalkers in season 1?
No.
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 Maybe as a minor thing once we get everyone else set up. Maybe we can prioritize. Like if our main factions are set up and the Ignomornium's working and everything's chooching, sure. Like we're very aware that would probably be the next thing you guys are interested in by the sounds of it.
And it's
So,
also
yeah.
it depends how players act. If you guys fucking team together and fucking try to learn about the Ashwalkers,
You also
we'll
don't know what's
respond to it.
coming, so you might forget about the Ashwalkers
Yeah.
in like a few weeks.
You might not like what you find though. Okay.
I,
They'd be like, Ashwalkers, Smashwalkers. We gotta figure out this. I'm like, okay.
I did have something kind of a bare bones plan of Ashwalkers if we had a gap to fill, but probably not season.
They have a lore and they have a background that's sick set up upon their creation that we know what to do with.
And season 1 doesn't mean the end of like the I don't want to say random events, but events that are not related to the main story. We'll still have those. Main story events will probably be like what, Archon?
Probably
Once
like
a once a month?
But
Yeah.
we'll be providing, like I said, for the people who just came in late, if you are only signing in for main story scheduled events, you're not gonna have a good time. Like everything, like those things are gonna be the amalgamation of everything that the players have been doing organically throughout the time in between. So I expect maybe like one big event a month that's like scheduled that is, the amalgamation of everything that's happened. But then we'll also be providing social events and mini events with those NPC factions.
Quest chains like Alt's
Quest
been
chains.
providing.
Mhm.
I don't think those are stopping. We'll still be doing events periodically that aren't directly tied in to the main story.
Yeah, like we'll have like
Which one of them
but-
could be the Ashwalkers potentially?
potentially, yeah.
And there is potential for like the Withering Bloom, the Hungering One, Ratman, maybe even Ansem pop up.
And also we'll be providing as representatives of the major story factions. We'll have like happy hour, office hour type things organically. Always check like your look for RP. Like if I'm ever on with a NPC, even now I put on free for RP. And I have museum stuff. We have at least 2 events. So yeah, there's always going to be like mini events that aren't related.
That's one of the main factions. Spoilers, the
Yeah,
museum.
spoilers, museums. I came on as a junior staffer, okay? I had a plan to just hang out and talk about lore.
Oh yeah, spoiler alert. Next season 1 does not involve the Ashwalkers as a major faction.
But also remember it's a grim dark shard, so you might not like what you find. Careful what you wish for.
No one is good except whatever faction I play.
No. My people.
I play
Well,
once in
my
Blue Guild.
faction's way better. My faction's the only one that's
No,
going to
no,
save
no.
all these people.
No. You'll know who to choose.
It's pretty
You'll
obvious.
know
Well,
who to
it'll be
choose.
obvious. It'll be my faction.
Mhm.
I mean, with the reputation system, it'll probably be possible to gain rep with Ashwalkers and then just go buy runes off of that, or infused particulate, or engineered filament, or
so-
whatever.
We
All
have to
these things
figure
are
it
definitely
out.
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
as we
all-
expand the system, like if Ashwalkers get their own rep thing, you have a lot of rep, then you can learn
Mhm.
more about them. Like you could go visit an NPC, we'll make an NPC to chat with you or do an
But
event,
first, we
whatever.
have to get it working on the things we need, and then
Yep.
everything after that is like, yeah, we're aware you guys want to get reputation with Ashwalkers. Come time.
You guys got to start with like negative 10,000 for Ashwalkers, though.
True,
Yeah,
actually.
you guys have been horrible.
True. Everyone with everyone's name in that book, that's what they're gonna be using. If you signed your name, you're boned.
Yeah. What's the next question?
Can't raise his hand again.
I mean, if anyone else has a question, they're more than welcome to get right ahead. I do have a question prepped though.
Good.
I'd like to touch on the sanctuary bonuses. You know, I'm not going to name names, but some people AFK quite a bit. Presently and in the past for infusion bonuses, and we can't really blame these people because the mechanical systems in place encourage such behavior. I was wondering if staff have any plans to, modify upon this system uh, to reward, active role players, and
Mhm.
as opposed to rewarding people who AFK 24/7, 365.
Yeah, we do. It's just kind of, again, we have a huge list and it's just getting to it. Um, we would like to put more stock into the looking for and free for RP functions and stacking those with Sanctuary versus idling. We also have limited Sanctuary to certain areas, and we would like to make it more rotating and dynamic versus it's just a matter of programming and testing.
Yeah, we've done things like you can't gain it if you're stealth somewhere. You have to be like in a public place. Is generally what they do. You can't we
Doesn't
have
work in a house.
No, it doesn't work in a house. So if you have a room in the tavern, you're not getting it. You have to be in like a public place that's accessible and not in stealth. So you're there and you're open to RP.
And you're not an eyeball.
True.
Yeah, so there's like all these things we have to like. It's just it's on the list. That's all I can really say.
But yeah, one
But
of
yeah.
them that was brought up was rather than idling and the long-term goal is you want to have all players be powerful in a given amount of time, right? So you have your hardcore players, they're just going to grind. How do you balance that with the casual player that only gets on every once in a while? That's why we have automatically gaining infusion every hour, even if you're offline, as long as your account is not inactive. So one thing we've talked about is bringing in like a rested system like World of Warcraft has, where as long as you're offline, that's ticking up in percentage. And then when you get back online, as you gain infusion, you'll get a bigger bump up to the normal daily cap. That way, if you're more casual, you're not on 24/7, idling, getting infusion. You can just get on every couple days even, and then catch up to the rest of the people that have been trying to grind it out. Not that that is actually being implemented, but we have discussed different
Yeah.
options like that, and we're thinking about it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways, but yeah, like that's again, it's the problem with balance is we want to try and reward the casual player, and then the overzealous one will milk it for all it's worth, and then the casual player will be left behind. So we just have to really balance that, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I wish it wasn't the case, but that's just what it is.
the point of Sanctuary is to reward people for RPing and not punish them if they're not hunting, so they can stay in town and get infusion if they just want to RP. Give them a way to progress. But Warriors are able to double dip that. I mean, there's tons of options we could do, like having different limits. caps on infusion, because I'm pretty sure like Sanctuary now it doesn't go against like your animus cap for the day. Like having option to sit in town and RP for animus cap versus going out and hunting for animus cap. I don't know. It's definitely something we discuss in our trying. We're fine tuning it further towards that goal of rewarding players for RPing and offering an alternative to progress besides hunting.
Yeah, like I would like to see it in the looking for RP functions. But there's, we're still kind of figuring out some things there. Like I know there was a few issues with like if you're trying to find somebody on a different map, it gets wonky, and so there's a few things.
Also, there's flaws there. Like you might not want people to find you. Like if you have enemies, it's not like just because you made some enemies doesn't mean you should not get Sanctuary, like stuff
Right,
like that.
yeah.
That's-
So like my personal hope, like what I would like to do is just make it like happy hours where like you have to go to a specific place and not be stealthed and have looking for replay on or something, like stuff to prevent just AFK. It's just really, really hard to implement.
And stuff like Sanctuary bonus not being rewarding, that's something I would prefer for look for RP, where it's like rather than like keep Sanctuary bonus as it is, but if you're on look for RP, you get an additional bonus because you're lighting that beacon, telling everyone come RP with me.
Also, maybe, I don't know, we can talk about it more as a team. What's the next question?
Go ahead, Ken.
Uh, um,
Real quick, we should probably rein it in. So, like, everyone has all these great ideas and suggestions, but like I said, we have all these. We agree with all of you, but we're really focused on crafting cleanup, allopathy, drugs, reputation, and then tweaking, enchanting, and magic. Like the stuff that's on our plate. Like, if we could try and rein it into that, that'd be a much better use of your time. Because suggestions and stuff, while we agree with all of them and we want all of those things too, it's just like we're not going to see them probably anytime soon unless we find a way to clone Rex into like 5 people. Your question though.
yeah, my question. So, with regards, I gotta phrase this in an open-ended way to give you the greatest opportunity to get into exposition.
Okay.
With regards to the faction system in season 1, what are your plans, and in particular, do you have any plans to balance the scales between factions that reside in town, with the primary town currently being Fort Presidium, versus your out of town factions who receive a number of benefits, such as like a large area and access to the pioneering system?
Balancing how? What do you
What are you looking for?
yeah, you're looking just because you can't build stuff, or
Yeah, sort of the balance of the scales between, all the opportunities that the pioneering system offers factions, particularly the extremely large plot available to out of town factions.
Yeah.
one of the things we are discussing is and will be implemented is actual costs to those big faction bases. So they have to pay upkeep. So there might be a discrepancy
There will
between
be a
like
discrepancy
yeah,
there.
between like what you pay in town versus what you pay for like a huge plot of land. Um, but there is some bonus like benefits to being in town too. Like you have guards, you're in like the RP hub. Um, but yeah, they'll. I feel like a lot of that'll come from when we actually turn on the cost for the factions.
Yeah, and that's on our to-do list as well. But yeah, I think you're going to see a huge discrepancy in upkeep, um, because you're not having to, or like in a role play sense, you're paying taxes on a maintenance building. Like you're not having to build the building yourself and upkeep it. So you're going to see a discrepancy there.
So faction claim maintenance will be turned on for season 1?
Not immediately.
Eventually
because
in season 1, yeah.
Yeah, like we don't want to have a situation where we turn it on and everything poofs. Like we don't want to have to diagnose, so we have to, and also, well, we have to program a few checks so that when we turn it on, there's like, it's not just like Wild West. But I want to turn that on as soon as possible because I want to clear out old faction claims and provide people like stuff to do in upkeeping their claims or whatever.
Domina's
Thank you very
question:
much.
drug withdrawals and long-term addiction consequences. We'll be. Oh, I think that's planned relatively soon, right, Archon? The drug stuff, like
I consider it as
one of
being a part of allopathy.
yeah.
So yes.
So the system. I mean, I have to get further in the details with Rex, and we have to discuss it, how it's going to function on the code end. But the drugs are going to be like completely overhauled of like their effects, what they do. The goal is to make the withdrawals much more serious, make the addiction an actual mechanic in which it's something you actually have to be aware of. Currently, I mean, I use drugs all the time. I don't got to worry about them ever. So we also want to make them more rewarding too. And one of the things is I currently use one drug and that's it. You get the effect. New system, you can use like a shit ton of whatever, and the bonuses continue to stack. But as they stack, you'll get diminishing returns. You'll build tolerance to the drug. You'll become more addicted and suffer more severe withdrawals, even leading to like permanent stat loss or PD of your character. There'll be ways to withdraw safely with the aid of a doctor. So yeah, it's still up in the air, but those are the goals going in.
We really want to make
Long-term effects
Yeah.
well, could also include, getting minor injuries off of for your recovery, and then at the end of like right now, minor injuries they just go away, they disappear when they heal. That's going to be changed where they might heal or they might turn into a worse.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
not related to drugs, just how the
But
major
allopathy is
injuries. Yeah.
Yeah, me and Rex and like we've had allopathy mapped out for a bit, but major injuries are also going to have a more like you have to visit a doctor, and otherwise you are going to be suffering more than you're going to have some sort of permanent, like if you get a major injury, now you're not going to get a major injury doing your normal PvP or PvP, yes baby. But if you get a major injury, it's going to be major, and you're going to have to get it treated. Otherwise, you're going to have to be, hopefully, how I intend it to be. You're going to be suffering from some sort of permanent debuff until you do. There will be there will be things like you can't mechanically run, you can't mechanically cast or speak, you can't hold a sword, like depending on where you're injured, where you're broken. And so while those effects may wear off, the stat effects may linger. And then like what Rex was saying, like if you have a more physical injury that's more like an infected wound or an open wound or hematoma, if that's not addressed, maybe it'll get better, but maybe it'll get worse, and you'll have the same problems with needing to get it addressed. But this is also to give another level of incapacitating each other without jumping straight to PD. So if you find a mage and you break their jaw, they can't just teleport away or whatever when they're up. Or if you're a mage and you're getting assaulted by a warrior, you can break their legs to get away, like that kind of stuff, without immediately going to PD.
Yeah, you have to KO them before you're able to do this.
Right,
so
of course.
You wouldn't be running away after you KO the warrior. But yeah, it's also to offer like an alternative to just PDing someone. I know a lot of people are afraid of like, you KO someone, you want to take them to their. I mean, we saw it a lot early. You want to take them to their base, do some RP, maybe do an execution on them rather than just PD them on the spot, or imprison them and let them go. But a lot of times they'll just get up and run. So a lot of the major injuries are geared to ensure that like once you're KO'd, you're out of the fight once they wound you.
This also gives us a tool that's fair. Like, if you're at an event with Vic and you're talking smack, they might break your jaw. And it's not a staffer, it's not a staffer like lording their power over you. It's something that you could do right back. And it's something that another player then can help you address. So it's to encourage, just having more tools for role play and for stakes. When will milk be fixed? I have to talk to Rex about that. It was brought to my attention today. I mean, I think it's been mentioned before. It's been mentioned before, but I have to. I didn't have it written out before to know.
It's to answer your question.
I know,
Ashford,
Rex. Milk is broke. No one told us.
It's based on. I just found this out today, so it must be new. I was sprinting today, and I was like, "Why is my sprint only 3 seconds?" If you're in combat, your sprint is lower, and it depends on your armor class, obviously. But like for light, when I was in combat, it was 3.5 seconds. Out of combat, it was 8 seconds. And I assume for heavy, it's like 2 seconds in combat or something. Stats. That's a big thing. That's huge. Stats are one of the most frustrating things about the server, I find. When? I don't know. Probably during when we do weapon review and special weapon moves and stuff.
Yeah, anywhere the frozen prop is used, I need to go through and change that to a more appropriate, like whatever the root prop or paralyzed, but not frozen, because the frozen puts you in a little ice cube for a moment.
There are stat caps. There's probably separate caps for hematology as well, I would imagine, but maybe not. There are stat cap. I think the stat cap is 150 for like strength and dex. I think the HP cap is pretty high. You might be able to, for hematology, it might just be like you can only have one buff of a certain type. We'd have to look and see. We'll address that in hematology review. Freezing. Will players get freezing? Maybe. I don't know. Currently, it's only for NPCs.
And Archmagic can freeze people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's true, yeah. And mages. Will strength... So strength will get improved? Potentially. It's still up in the air.
So we don't know what changes are going to be removed and change. Like we're not in hematology yet. And Asher, you'll be on the.
Yeah, I don't know, Asher. That's for you to tell me.
We're gonna be doing that together. We're not.
That's for you and Collins to tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in allopathy, crafting, cleanup, drugs, magic, enchanting, and season 1 reputation. That's where
Magic's
we're at
pretty
right now.
much done.
Yeah, I just mean like tweaking, just like
Yeah.
Yeah.
cleaning up those things. Anything after that, we do want to get to it. It's just we got to do these things first. So everything we say about anything else is way speculative, and I have no idea when it's gonna be implemented. I hope to be soon.
All right, Kent.
Go ahead, Kent.
Well, if you insist. So, I was wondering, has Requiem staff considered a Patreon or a Kickstarter, especially in regards to advertisement and future player growth as we enter season 1?
I don't know where to advertise. If anyone has any ideas, like when you say put money into advertising, someone tell me what that means. I'd love to know and I'd love to do it. But yeah, I just don't even know where to begin. We're a private shard on we're a private shard, so we can't advertise most places.
Also, I think due to the nature of Ultima Online, we weren't able
I gotta
to,
dip out. I believe in you all.
we weren't able to consider Patreon due to we're using Ultima Online. I don't think we use it.
Yeah, but wasn't that
We can-
ruled legal like 20
Yeah,
years ago?
we can use Patreon. It's just because I mean I'm a Patreon member of COU. It's just a matter of like we'd have to think about what do you guys get, right? What do you guys get for being members? What can we promise without, breaking that trust between paying Patreon members, right?
I'd like my character to be very strong.
And then yeah, like I would love to put money. I would put money into advertising right now out of my own pocket. I just don't know what that means or where I do it. So if anyone knows, let me know. I'll do it. I'll do it right now. But also, UO is a very esoteric system. So like in regards to new players and player retention and stuff, I mean, word of mouth is always the best way to get people into UO because it's such an archaic system. Like having a friend along to help you is, to me, I think the easiest way to get involved. So the best thing I can offer is recruit a friend.
Yeah. You can click on the events tab that we have running, and if one of these events that rotates in and out seems cool, you'd like to share it with a friend, go ahead and do that. Just go into the events tab and hit share, and then grab the link and then pass it on to a friend.
And then we give out LP or whatever for streamers when they post stuff. But if anyone has any ideas about to advertise legally, and like I said, a lot of subreddits have like no private shard postings. Let me know. Open a ticket. I'm happy to work with anybody who has ideas. And I'm not against a Patreon. Again, I just don't want to. I don't want to undersell anything we would promise in that kind of transaction. So we just have to think about it. Giant hats. Ooh, well, you'll just have to see what factions have the giantest hat. To your question, Bill, I mean, I don't think hopefully it doesn't stay niche. I think UO is like the best RP uh interface outside of like D&D because it leaves enough room for the imagination without, you know, I don't know, it has a really good flow to it, but yeah, how do you get, I mean, if everyone's got their D&D tables, right? Or their forum posts, any RP communities, bring them in, have them try it out. There's tons of stuff happening in game that you could bring them in on, catch them up, and that was like the perfect time because we're going to be slowly introducing major elements. Anyone else got any questions? I'm mapping, so someone has to speak up if they do have questions.
I have a question.
Okay, I knew it was going to be you. Can't speak up.
Well, I was wondering, are there any plans currently to add more steps between a knockout and a PD? Presently in the system as it stands, PDing is pretty much the only major consequence. PD or Providence, whatever, however you want to phrase it, is the only major consequence employable by the whoever finds themselves victor of a PvP type situation. Where murderers and the
You can,
bullet.
as soon as you start to kill someone, you can literally just choose to give them an injury instead.
Yeah, so I was going to touch on that. You can indeed give someone an injury, but currently injuries are essentially a meme where you can just wait them off.
Right, yeah.
There's no like lasting consequence that you can give someone except PD.
You must have been AFK for the major injury discussion we just had a bit ago.
Yeah,
Well,
we just
yeah, I'm aware
discussed that.
Did I
you have
catch you?
plans. You have plans with major injuries, but like besides major injuries, is there any plan for consequences?
You're gonna have to suggest what are you hoping there is that isn't. You want to incapacitate somebody without violence?
Oh, well, I mean, there's a lot of shit in between those two things. I mean, there's like dry looting, like just within what's within the mechanical limits presently. Like you could dry loot someone, but that's against server rules. You could inflict permanent stat debuffs. I mean, that kind of gets into the major injury
That's major
clause,
injuries, yeah.
but major injuries can be healed. So, but whereas a PD cannot be healed,
Can't. Yeah, I mean, it's really
so can you
tricky
inflict
because
injuries that can't be healed?
not currently, but I mean, major injuries are
Like,
hopefully going to be pretty.
let's say hypothetically, someone is, I'm playing character A, and then character B comes up, and he's talking mad shit, so to speak. And then my character A, wants to cut their tongue out. I played a different UORP server where being mute was a character trait. Now, have you guys considered implementation of, like, for instance, cutting someone's
So
tongue out
like
and making them
the
mute?
issue with that kind of tool is it's like on paper it sounds great, and with a group of responsible players it's great. Um it just gets murky. I think if like right now, yeah, like what Domna said, if you had that an altercation in game and they consented to that, we would probably immediately hop in and help you accomplish it. But
Yeah, but we are in UORP, so it's like no one would ever consent to that because people, as we all know, get just have a tendency to slightly get just a tad bit over attached to their characters. No one's gonna consent to that.
right, so imagine how upset they would be if we had that as a mechanic without their consent.
Right, but
I
the
mean, you can say the
alternative
same
is
about PD and stuff. I understand that, but
the alternative is permanent death, right? So it's kind of a forced 0 to 100 upon the victor of a
well, there's right.
combat.
There's going to be major injuries for that in between, which they will
Yeah,
provide
but those will
permanent
just go away.
stats up until 3 days. No,
Oh,
they won't.
okay.
That's what we're saying. They like the initial the inability to cast or sprint, for example, like those type of injuries, that piece will wear off over time. And by time, I don't mean like a day or a few hours. That will eventually wear off if you really can't find help, but you will have permanent debuffs to your person until you get it addressed.
Right,
And
but so I guess this can segue into a question about major injuries. Let's say I'm playing character A, and character B comes up and he whoops my ass thoroughly.
Hmm.
And he inflicts a permanent injury, or sorry, a major injury upon me. But I've got a good buddy, player C in this scenario. Player C, whips up some fucking magic cure for my permanent injury. Will I have any lasting long-term consequences for that?
Probably not right now. I'm not against the idea. The problem is, again, it's just like some mechanics, like permadeath, right? At least allows you to start over. But being put into a situation where you are maimed beyond, you know, like how what keeps the player engaged with the game after they've been maimed,
Oh, you can always
right?
commit suicide.
well, it goes to like the game versus the simulation. Like, are we simulating your arm is cut off, and then the person's like, "Well, I'm a swordsman. Now I can't play."
Yeah,
Or
like we don't want to hard lock people out of their story. I mean, like death does that, but death is like allows them that restart, whereas a permanent maim, hard locks them out of features and they don't die. So it's just like it's really tricky. Again, if
Have
two
you
people,
considered a system where, much like the Providence system, where if a player has Providence, they have the opportunity to choose between permanent death as opposed to losing, a certain percentage of their lifetime animus. Have you considered a permanent injury, such as being, mute or deaf if someone cuts off your ears, et cetera, and then giving the player 24 hours, much as Providence does, to choose between, accepting being a mute or, not having their sword arm, et cetera, or dying from their injury? Because
Yeah,
that's how I've always RP'd death, is
yeah,
that it's
a
a
major
major
mortal
injury.
blue, yeah.
Right.
I'm not against it. It's just it hasn't. I haven't really thought about it. Like right now, I'm just trying to get major injuries in the game. The nuance of how of like varying degrees like that of like permanent maiming and how Providence could play into it. I'm not against exploring those ideas. It's just haven't got a chance to think about that yet. So thank you for the suggestion. But
You are very welcome.
the thing is like the thing about maiming is just that though. It's just like PDing somebody, they at least they start over. Like they're back in, they're fresh, they get all their animus, they can continue. Whereas like a permanent maim against their will is soft or hard locking them out of certain aspects of the game without that ability to continue in a way. And that can just be straight up frustrating and cause that player. Yeah, that's not fun if it's not consensual. Um, I now
Well,
I think
usually
nine
these
times
things aren't
yeah,
consensual.
right. Um, a lot of feelings and attachment happen, which is why I just want to be careful of that kind of thing. But yeah, like as soon as today, if two people were like, I want to cut out someone's tongue, I'd be like, and they consented, I'd be like, Rex, how do we cut out this person's tongue mechanically? Like, I'd be all hands. But um, yeah, I mean, to Donna's point, we're all adults, like check in with each other during conflict. It's a game.
Are they though? Have you ever played Requiem?
We're all legally of age to say we're adults. Um, and so there's nothing stopping you from getting in a party chat and talking about the consequences and such. I understand that that's not always going to happen. But yeah, right now
I've
Maiming-
tried that.
permanent maiming is-
Classic Staffman's ruse, you know? That doesn't always work out.
I can attest that, yes, in areas of conflict, you have reached out to certain parties and gotten in a ticket with them. But yeah, so right now, permanent maiming, not right now, but I like the idea of Providence and all that stuff. It's just you got to be careful. But I hope major injuries bridges the gap between stakes, and it provides stakes to be raised without major lasting consequences. And those consequences are lasting until you get interaction with a doctor. Yes, costs.
So he wants to maim people, but I'd like to take a more sophisticated and intellectual route here, since my character will soon have 120% in allopathy, and he does have the feat that lets him do psychological handling. Can I just drive his character batshit nuts if I knock him out?
I mean, you and him can do RP right now to do that kind of RP. You
Yes,
can gaslight
yes,
somebody.
but I want to force gaslight him by waving a pocket watch in front of his eyes for a few minutes.
You could try. I mean, we're not getting like so the official answer is yeah, like I mean, we've already said hematology review is coming, once we clean up the stuff for season 1. So it's going to be prepped for season 2. And then sanity is going to be more or less season 3. So like if you're actually looking for those mechanics, expect them in season 3.
You mean with one
Yeah.
int I'm not able to gaslight a 120 int character?
Yeah, probably not. And again, though, if anyone has any ideas of how to clone Rex, we can get this stuff in faster. I don't have any ideas, so but if we can get 2 more Rexes, they all have to like share Rex's memories, and it has to be like a hive mind, right, Rex? I don't want to PM 3 Rexes. It has to be like three shared consciousness Rexes. Right, Don, that's what I'm saying. I can't replace him. He has to just like break into 2 pieces.
Oof.
So any other? They might have questions about story. I mean, I was trying to be super vague, and I'll continue to be vague in certain regards. But if anyone has any questions, tell me about Redhome. I'm gonna drop that tonight. Actually, let's drop it. I can drop it right now. Well, I'll drop it after this.
Do you want to drop like certain bits about it right now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could tell y'all what the intention behind Redhome is. Hopefully, it reads on the page. Real quick, Murdy, what if major injury were something that wasn't permanent, but it wore off over the course of weeks? Yeah, they do wear off over the course of weeks, even when treated.
Major?
Major still take like take time, even after they've even after a doctor's attended to them. It's not going to be 30 minutes like a minor injury. It'll still put you out. The idea is because you don't get those things through like a boss fight. You get those from a altercation with a player or a character. So those are meant to put you down for the count and out of combat long enough to hopefully resolve the issue or escalate. So if you break your leg and someone sets it, you're still going to be out for a bit. You won't be incapable of walking, but you're not going to be able, you're still going to be in some trouble. So back to the just reading these things real quick. Okay, fine. Hand up. What up?
So, to touch on this major injury talk, so with regards to the permanence of, or not permanence, but longer lasting effect of major injuries, so like, is it going to be different as far as the allopathy side of it? Is it going to be different from curing a regular injury? Would it be equivalent, for instance, if an engineer goes to create an augment, they need that filament shit. Is it going to be a rare item that a doctor needs to cure a permanent injury that would cost a shitload of money, etc.?
Take a power on that.
Sorry, I kind of zoned out. You want to know if there's like,
is it going to cost a lot to repair a major injury, and is it possible that a player won't be able to get their injury repaired because of a lack of materials?
Sure. I don't know if you've ever engaged with the allopathy system, but medicine is not easy to get. It is once you're established and you have a lot of, but it takes a lot. It takes an engineer, a horticulturist, a artisan, and a alchemist to get your basics. And then you have to successfully know the solve to get it right. And if you botch it, the injury gets worse. There's a lot of stuff going on in allopathy if you've never done it.
Will there be a
Um,
chance to get mort? If you fail curing a major injury.
I love the idea of that actually.
Sounds fun.
Let me see. Was that the idea? Hi Mort. What's Ashford? You said really love the idea of in major injuries hybrid. What's that idea? What's the idea for that? Someone type out that suggestion.
I think maybe like, he'll clarify.
But how I have them mapped out. So if you ever have been into the allopathy system, you'll notice there is a ton of solves and treatments that aren't used in the minor injuries. So they'll be using a lot of those. Like you'll see there's a set bone button that doesn't work for minor injuries. There's nothing broken, but there is for major injuries. So like that kind of thing.
Right.
So
I
they'll
believe what
probably-
Ashford was referring to is the chance, instead of getting a worthless mort point, which is very easily circumvented by any player who's ever played Requiem. Instead, you could get a major injury from that.
I mean, if you
Possible,
guys
but-
really listen, if you guys want us to
Here's
do
the
that,
thing. I think you want, but some of the major injuries are like you said, if you're not able to get the treatment, they're debilitating.
Right. Well, I mean, I personally, I can only speak for myself and also my faction. But
without exception.
I find the game to be soft, like that toilet paper
Mhm.
you see the commercials for.
Uh-huh.
And I'd like to see more debilitating and horrifying things happen. So,
Yeah, for sure. I agree
Okay,
with you.
let me ask you something. Do you, how soon do you want this current character to die? I mean, he hasn't been the longest running yet. And how badly do you want him hobbled while he's alive?
I'd like him to be dependent on a cane.
Hmm.
We do need to get some canes.
Almost
Yeah, I'm not
immediately.
against that, Ashford. It's just be careful. Like it's like, are you sure that's what you want? Like the like I mean we haven't programmed it and discussed it, but like how my initial pitch, or we've discussed it, but we haven't like me and Rex haven't sat down and like put these in. Like I plan on having, even if the best doctor heals you, like with doctor intervention, a major injury is still going to take like 3 days to heal, and without intervention it's going to be partially healed after like 2 weeks. That might be too long.
Sounds pretty
I don't know.
forgiving.
You think that's, I mean, also like you're looking at like negative, like halving your stats, like half your mana regen, half your mana, half your dex, the inability to equip a weapon, the lowering of light levels to super low, no casting or talking. Like you're looking at like major stuff. That's what I agree, Constantine. I meant it to be more of a PvP or story type thing. Like
Yeah.
Like maybe there's a story boss. There's like
Right, but you go out and infinitely farm Ashwalkers or future Ashwalkers, whatever
Here's
the
another thing.
equivalent might be. There's no consequence ever. Like my character, when I play Requiem, I go into any situation knowing that any situation except PvP, knowing that there's absolutely no consequences for my character that will be long term, and I essentially have no fear. I mean, I would walk up and smack anything.
You also have
Right.
watched it. You haven't. Okay.
But that's the thing, is
Here's the
most
thing.
people, once they get mort from a mob, they usually call an end to the hunt because they don't want to roll the dice. Like the fear is there. It's just people play around the mort. Like having 2 mort, you can die. People died all the time with 1 mort.
The
Yeah.
majority of people die to 1 mort.
Yeah,
I
the
cannot
low mort.
tell you like how many people die to 1 mort.
It's just people, and it's not exactly the healthiest mechanic to just end a hunt because you have mort, but Like there is some sense of fear with mortality.
Well, to address what Ashford just said, I don't think that early game mobs should have a risk of major injuries. That should only be like towards the mid and
Yeah, for sure.
late game.
Yeah. No, I mean that's what I'm saying. Like we could implement it in like I just don't want it to be a regular like the thing is, okay, for example, last act, from what I understand, the mort shed every 2 weeks. And these things that debilitate a character, the person will just not log in for 2 weeks. They don't bring something like the debilitatingness of time wearing off stuff doesn't really
Right? You fix
doesn't really
that
bring
by not
anything.
letting players be logged out to decay
Yeah.
their mort. Like
Actually, that's already a
so
thing. They can't decay their mort when they're logged out. I'm pretty sure
speaking
that's already
from
a thing.
so that must have been a change because I played a character earlier in this season who had PD'd a couple of other characters, and I had accumulated on that character some mort, and I just kind of like I just logged out. I just went to work in real life, and when I came back, the mort was gone. So it was like zero consequences for my character. Horribly murdering a couple other people.
No, I agree. I think mort should be higher. If you murder somebody, I think you should get way more mort. It ticks down pretty quickly
Permanent
because,
mort.
like what I said, yeah, I mean, I'm not against,
No.
I'm against, but ultimately, I think the big thing is like when it comes to time stuff and consequences, everybody's idea of that and what they're willing to persist is different. So, like, where somebody, like most people, anecdotally, will probably just log off for 2 weeks be frustrated if they can't get their wounds treated in a reasonable manner.
If you
Like-
want, Kent, I can follow you around, and whenever you get KO'd by a boss, I can give you a major injury. So you get to live that world.
Please.
Live
But
that
yeah,
thug
and then
life.
I'm not saying like you can't get, I am kind of saying you can't, I don't plan on implementing major injuries in the PvE system, but there may be special exceptions to that, like really hard bosses or story-based events where we might have major injuries applied upon KO to certain NPCs, like because it's a more
Yeah,
realistic situation.
yeah, but then
Um,
you're just gonna encourage people not to show up for events.
that's if you attack them. I never really plan on. I don't plan on really ever having NPCs attack players at events.
No, your plans are very different from mine. But go on.
Uh-oh.
What's the next?
What's gonna happen at this soup kitchen?
Everybody should come to the soup kitchen. Everything will
Bring
be
all
fine.
your best gear and all your gold.
Yeah, you can't trust the banks these days. Bring all of your gold.
Anyone have any questions?
Donna is still waiting to hear about Red Home.
Red Home. You sure you know about Red Home? Red Home.
Archon doesn't even know anything about Red Home.
Yeah, what do I fucking know? And actually it is gonna be, I do recommend everyone read Red Home. I don't know how well it's gonna read on the page, okay? My eyes are bleeding from all the shit. But hopefully the Red Home gives you an idea of like we're in such a small piece of the world. Like we are in such a small area and the world is massive. And so like it's important to note that because we're just specks in the world compared to everything else going on. And so hopefully Red Home kind of explains how just the disparity between what you guys are existing through versus what they are versus what everyone else is. I hope it kind of shows you like the power dynamics of the prelacy and how they actually function in society. And also the government is going to be talking more about that. And Red Home also has a lot of like medicine and science, like where Tor was the capital, and there's a lot of different sections of industry throughout the Vitavius is so massive. Red Home's angle is science and technology, specifically medicine, because you'll see that there's stuff that happened there that made them kind of kind of redirect their venture capital. Yeah, so hopefully you just see kind of like wealth disparity and out of touchness from our capital.
We're talking about this. Have we talked about the Sentinel?
The Republic
not-
Sentinels dropping this week.
Well,
When
like
is
the
President's Valley open? It's probably gonna open. It's probably gonna be like the second or third big major event. We have a lot of exposition to kind of build up to that moment, I guess. So expect it probably in October, end of October. Like, cause there's, I want to have certain things in by then, but there's going to be a lot of stuff happening in between right now. Like I said, Ignomordium, Museum, Reputation, Exposition.
but
We do
to
need more Previously players, Ashford. We do.
true.
Class Warfare is so good, and it's alive and well in Red Home. So I miss it so much. I put it in there.
ASAP Fable has a question. When will Penitence Valley open?
Yeah, I just said that
She just
in
said
like 6 weeks.
Public Sentinel Archon. Okay, you're talking about specs. I think it's important.
I have a whole. It's funny. You read Red Home, and it starts with like, yeah, there's like mountains, and like, yeah, and then I'm like, oh, let me tell you about the Sentinel. You can tell where I'm excited.
Well, it's like
Uh,
like the point of the Sentinel. Now, tell me if you already went over
Mm.
this, or you don't want to reveal anything.
Okay.
It's because you're just like the world is alive around you and stuff is happening. The Republic Sentinel will be filling you in about what's going on outside of the first province, the changes, everything that's happening, how the world is changing around you.
Yeah, and like it's also like the Republic Sentinel is kind of going to be it's kind of a tool to mirror what's happening on the ground. Like you guys, again, you guys are just like minor individuals in a huge world, right? But that you kind of
You're
represent
ants.
your
You're
ants.
nothing.
You're ants on the back of a.
Why are you
but
even
also,
playing? Just quit.
you're nothing. But the thing is, you are like the average person, right? You're like the average person experiencing this world. So hopefully, my intention with the Republic Sentinel is to have a lot of parallels between what's happening and what you guys are doing, ripple effect into the macro. So, like, if you are helping certain NPCs or you are agreeing with certain ideologies, that kind of will parallel the average public sentiment of like the average person elsewhere to cause. So you'll kind of see those effects happen in the Sentinel, if that makes sense. Also, you might see just fluff, just to kind of give you an idea of how horrible this world is. And then you also might see like just all sorts of stuff. Things can come into play. We might introduce characters. We might introduce clues. We might have people show up for that we've been writing about in the Sentinel. It's all, again, everything is kind of modular to react to what you guys decide to do. That's the big goal. Also, the ads are dope as fuck. Sorry, swearing.
Dope as heck.
Dope as heck.
Gonna have to censor this on my
They're
recording.
very funny. They're amazing. But yeah, I'll drop it after this. I'll drop it after this, and I'll also have a poll. I'll just start doing that right now, actually. We've kind of meandered into being done, so I'll just start.
Yeah, I think Kent's all done with questions. Like he's finally
That will
ran
never
out.
be done, so I'm just gonna start working on things.
Yes, we are now approaching the 7th hour of the Jerry Lewis Telethon. We better wrap this up before it starts to haywire.